A 2002 Toyota Camry just crossed 500,000 miles. The owner posted about it online last year. Same engine, same transmission it left the factory with. He credits one thing: regular oil changes. That is it. No exotic products, no expensive upgrades, just consistent, boring maintenance done on time. But here is what that story does not tell you, because oil changes are only the beginning. There are 6 other habits hiding inside your maintenance schedule that most Toyota owners either skip, delay, or do completely wrong. And every one of them is slowly shortening the life of a car that was engineered to run for decades without a major repair. I have been working on Toyotas for years. I have seen engines that should have lasted 400,000 miles end up scrap metal at 180,000 miles. I have also seen Corollas and Camrys pushed past 350,000 miles that still feel tight and smooth. The difference is never luck. It is always the same handful of decisions made over and over again, quietly, without drama, starting from the very first year of ownership. Today, I am walking you through every single one of them. Habit number 1, change your engine oil at the right time, not the convenient time. This sounds obvious. That is why it gets ignored. People know oil changes matter. They just push them off 2 months, then 3 months, then they forget entirely. I have opened engines where the oil looked like black tar and moved like molasses. The owners swore they had been keeping up with it. The sludge inside the valve cover told a different story. Engine oil has one job: to keep metal from grinding against metal at temperatures and speeds that would destroy it without lubrication. When that oil gets old, it stops doing that job. The additives that protect against heat and friction break down. The oil thickens. Tiny particles of metal and combustion byproducts build up inside it. Every mile you drive past the service interval, those particles are circulating through your engine's most critical components: the bearings, the piston rings, the camshaft lobes. The damage those particles do is permanent. You cannot undo it with a fresh oil change later. You can only slow the rate at which it continues. For most Toyotas, the factory recommendation is an oil change every 5,000 miles or 6 months, whichever comes first. If you are driving a newer model with synthetic oil and an oil life monitoring system, follow what the system tells you, but do not let that number drift past 10,000 miles, regardless of what the indicator says. Synthetics last longer, but they are not immortal. The fluid itself costs between $30 and $60 if you do it yourself. The repair bill for a sludged engine runs from $4,000 to a complete engine replacement. The math is not complicated. Habit number 2, your transmission fluid is not lifetime fluid, no matter what the sticker says. This is the one that costs people the most money. Toyota and many dealerships label automatic transmission fluid as lifetime. Drivers hear that word, lifetime, and stop thinking about it. They never touch it again. Then, somewhere between 120,000 and 180,000 miles, the transmission starts slipping. Shifting gets rough. A strange shudder appears at low speeds. By the time those symptoms show up, the damage is already done. Here is the truth about lifetime transmission fluid. When engineers say lifetime, they mean the fluid will survive the expected life of the vehicle under ideal conditions. They do not mean it will survive 200,000 miles in stop-and-go traffic in Phoenix in the summer. Heat destroys transmission fluid. It breaks down the lubrication properties, allows microscopic clutch material to build up inside the fluid, and slowly begins to degrade every surface it contacts. Pull a sample of transmission fluid out of a Toyota with 100,000 miles and no service history, and what you will find is burnt, dark fluid carrying metal particles that have been circulating through precision components for years. The right interval is a drain and fill every 60,000 miles. Not a full flush, just a drain and fill. For continuously variable transmissions, often abbreviated CVT, which are in many modern Corollas and other models, mechanics who specialize in Toyotas recommend being even more conservative, every 30,000 to 40,000 miles, especially if you drive in hot climates or heavy stop-and-go traffic. And here is the critical detail that nobody warns you about. Always use the correct Toyota spec fluid. Use Toyota WS fluid for conventional automatics. Use genuine Toyota CVT fluid for CVT transmissions. Using a generic substitute that claims compatibility is how people end up with transmission shudder and seal damage 6 months after a fluid change. The fluid is cheap. A replacement CVT transmission is not. Habit number 3. Flush your brake fluid before your brakes start feeling wrong. Most drivers never think about brake fluid until the pedal goes soft. By then, the fluid has been silently failing for years. Here is why. Brake fluid is hygroscopic. That means it absorbs moisture from the air. It does this constantly, even in a sealed system, because the rubber hoses, gaskets, and seals that make up your brake lines are microscopically porous. Water seeps in slowly, year after year. As that water content builds up, it lowers the fluid's boiling point, and that matters more than most drivers realize. Fresh DOT3 brake fluid boils at around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Once that same fluid has absorbed moisture over 2 or 3 years, its boiling point can drop significantly. Now imagine you are driving down a mountain or making a series of hard stops in traffic. Brakes generate intense heat. If your brake fluid boils and turns to vapor, it becomes compressible. Compressible fluid cannot transfer force. Your pedal goes to the floor. Your stopping distance skyrockets. Your Toyota, which was engineered with a braking system capable of stopping it instantly, suddenly cannot do its job because of a $20 fluid flush that you put off for 4 years. Beyond the safety issue, moisture inside the braking system corrodes metal. Calipers rust from the inside. Master cylinder bores develop pitting. Brake lines start to degrade from the inside out. None of this is visible from the outside. All of it is preventable. Toyota's official recommendation is a brake fluid change every 2 years or 20,000 miles. Real-world mechanics who see the inside of these systems say every 3 years is the maximum you should push it. The job costs between $80 and $150 at most shops. The alternative is calipers, master cylinders, and brake lines, a repair that starts at $500 and climbs quickly. Habit number 4, change your coolant before it turns acidic. Coolant doesn't just stop your engine from overheating in summer and freezing in winter. It's also an anti-corrosion agent for everything the cooling system touches, and that corrosion protection has a lifespan. Most modern Toyotas use a long-life coolant, the pink fluid, that maintains its corrosion inhibitors for about 5 years or 100,000 miles under normal conditions. That schedule sounds generous, and it is. But there are 2 problems. First, most Toyota owners don't track their coolant age at all, so they have no idea when it was last changed. Second, once the corrosion inhibitors are depleted, the coolant itself becomes slightly acidic. Acidic coolant does exactly what you'd expect. It attacks metal surfaces such as water pump housings, radiator cores, heater cores, and the inside of the engine block. The aluminum components that Toyota uses in modern engines are particularly vulnerable. I've seen water pumps fail at 80,000 miles on cars that should have gone 200,000 because the owner stretched the coolant change to 150,000 miles and then watched the cooling system degrade from the inside. The water pump bearings corroded, the seals leaked, the engine ran hot. By the time the temperature gauge moved, the head gasket was already stressed. The fix is one of the cheapest maintenance items on the list. A coolant flush and fill runs $80 to $150. Do it every 50,000 miles or 5 years. For Toyota hybrids, this also applies to the inverter coolant, a separate circuit that keeps the hybrid system cool. Skipping that one can damage the inverter, and inverter replacements on hybrids run into the thousands of dollars. Habit number 5. Know whether your Toyota has a timing belt and treat it accordingly. This is the one that blindsides people. Most modern Toyotas, like Camry, Corolla, RAV4, and Highlander, have timing chains. They are metal, and they last the life of the engine under normal maintenance. Older Toyota models, particularly those made before the mid-2000s, and some V6 engines like the 3.4-liter used in older Tacomas and 4Runners, have timing belts made of rubber. Rubber wears out on a clock. The replacement interval for a Toyota timing belt is every 90,000 miles under normal conditions. Some manufacturers recommend replacement as early as 60,000 miles under severe use. The belt gives no warning before it fails. There is no grinding noise, no check engine light, no rough running. One day it is there. The next day it snaps while you are driving at highway speed. This matters because most Toyota engines with timing belts are interference engines. When the timing belt breaks, the pistons and valves can occupy the same space at the same instant without anything coordinating them. Valves get bent, pistons get damaged. What should have been a $700 timing belt service becomes an engine rebuild that starts at $3,000 and often ends in a total engine replacement. If you do not know whether your Toyota has a belt or a chain, look it up right now. It is in your owner's manual, and it takes 30 seconds to find online. If it has a belt and you are approaching 90,000 miles without a replacement, this is not optional maintenance. This is the repair that saves your engine. One more thing about timing chains. They last a long time, but they need one thing to survive: clean, fresh oil at the right level. The timing chain tensioner is hydraulically controlled. It runs on oil pressure. Skip enough oil changes and that tensioner loses its ability to keep the chain tight. A loose chain rattles on startup, then skips a tooth, then causes timing errors that the ECU cannot fully compensate for. Keep the oil fresh, and most Toyota timing chains will never need attention at all. Habit number 6. Stop mixing maintenance on your serpentine belt and your coolant hoses into the category of "I'll do it later." These two items don't fail gradually. They fail suddenly, and both have the same consequence. You are stranded on the side of the road with a car that either won't run or is overheating so fast you can't drive it safely. The serpentine belt, the long rubber belt that drives your alternator, power steering pump, and air conditioning compressor, has a replacement interval of roughly 60,000 to 100,000 miles, depending on your Toyota model. It doesn't start squealing before it breaks. It doesn't show obvious cracks until it's well past due. If it snaps while you're driving, your alternator stops charging, your battery drains, and your car dies on the highway. In many models, it also drives the water pump, which means the engine starts overheating within minutes. Coolant hoses carry the same risk. They look fine from the outside, but rubber deteriorates from the inside. After 10 years or 100,000 miles, hoses that appear perfectly intact may have internal cracking, soft spots, or hardened sections that are one hard squeeze away from failing. A burst coolant hose dumps your entire cooling system onto the road in seconds. Your temperature gauge spikes. If you don't pull over instantly, you are looking at a warped head or a blown head gasket. Inspect your serpentine belt every 30,000 miles. Look for cracking on the underside, glazing, fraying at the edges, or any visible wear. If the belt has more than 60,000 miles on it and has never been replaced, replace it now. Inspect your coolant hoses at the same interval. Squeeze them. They should feel firm but not brittle, soft but not spongy. Any abnormality means replacement. A serpentine belt costs $30 to $60 for the part. A coolant hose costs $20 to $50. Installation at a shop runs a couple of $100s. Compare that to a tow truck, an emergency repair at a dealership, and a potential head gasket job on the other side, and the decision is obvious. Here is what all of this adds up to. The Toyota owners who reach 300,000 or 400,000 miles without a major repair are not lucky. They did not drive a special version of the car from a different assembly line. They followed a maintenance schedule that treats the engine seriously at every interval. They changed the oil before it turned to sludge. They changed the transmission fluid before it turned to varnish. They changed the brake fluid before it started corroding the system it was supposed to protect. They replaced the timing belt before it had a chance to destroy the engine. They caught the hoses and belts before they stranded themselves on the highway. Toyota builds these cars with enough engineering margin to last 20 years. Your maintenance decisions determine whether they actually get there. Every flush you delay and every belt you put off is borrowing from that margin, a little at a time, invisibly, until one day the account runs out. Drop a comment below and tell me how many miles are on your Toyota right now. And tell me the last time you changed your transmission fluid. I will be reading every single response.